and welcome to the Victorious Living Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Nikeya Young, and I'm so excited to talk to you about the last episode of season 2. And for today's show, we are going to talk about the subject, kick it up a notch. Kick it up a notch. Quarter 2 is here. We are at the top of April. So April, May, and June. That makes up quarter 2. And this is a good point in the year to really kick things up a notch. So quarter 1 was the warm up. You kind of had your goals. You were feeling them out, finding some things that worked, maybe some things that didn't, making a little bit of headway into things. But then you kind of thought probably, oh, I've got plenty of time. This is only quarter 1. I'm just kind of getting my feet wet. Well, that was fine for quarter 1, but in quarter 2, baby, it's time to kick it in gear. This is the quarter that if you're not careful, if you lollygag around and don't do your very best to make significant progress towards your goals in quarter 2, the likelihood of you accomplishing those goals by the end of the year diminishes a great deal and only continues to diminish the longer you delay making true forward progress. So this is a good time to take stock of things. So like I mentioned, some things to do. What went really, really well for you in quarter 1? What are some things that, like, if you had to think of 3 things where you were just like, okay, quarter 1, I did great with my workouts. I did great with pitching myself to clients. I did really great in my relationships. Whatever it was, what were the 3 things that you were like, man, I really beasted those things out in quarter 1? And I want you to think about those first before you get into things you need to work on, because you deserve to celebrate the things that you did really, really well. Don't forget to celebrate the big wins. That's only going to motivate you to keep going. Okay? So after you do that, then you can get into some, okay, what things didn't work so well? What things did I say I was going to do, but then I didn't really put action to my words? Think about those things and don't give a whole notebook sheet of paper full. Just think of 3. Just 3 things that I know for sure if I could change these 3 things, I would be in a much better position in quarter 2 than I was in quarter 1. Okay, so here's a good example of that. So my quarter 1, I had a great quarter, you guys, in terms of media. March in particular, like I had the whole quarter was really great, but March, baby, when I tell you I ended quarter 1 with a bang, I was in so many press outlets in March, and that was a big goal of mine, to pitch myself more to media, and that builds brand authority. And, I have a lot of media appearances. I have a pretty significant press kit, but I wanted to continue to do more with that in, quarter 1. And so I did. We got a press kit going for me. We got a speaker 1 sheet created for me. And I took those tools and put them to good use. I ended up with an Authority magazine interview. I ended up on WGN, a really great segment called Main Character Energy. And so we did a podcast episode all about main character energy if you want to go back and look at that. But also make sure you check out my WGN TV segment. It was awesome. And it was my first time doing a morning TV show segment like that. I've always wanted to do those type of segments and thought I would be really great for it. And I pitched myself, and look at God, they said yes. So if you are thinking about doing something like that, and you're sitting here overthinking it, going, oh, I don't really know if they want to hear what I have to say. I don't really know. Child, let me tell you something. These morning show producers are looking for good content. Now, if you're going to go on TV, then you have to be a confident speaker. You can't go on there, fidgeting and all of this crazy stuff. But I'm assuming if you're watching this podcast, you already are pretty much on a trajectory to doing great things for your business and your brand, and you shouldn't have a problem with that. Your problem is probably more up here than your actual ability to do the thing. So I'm talking to you people who have all the credentials in the world, and you know that you know your stuff. And for some reason, you're just kind of sitting and waiting until, I don't know what you're waiting on. Wait until you know a little bit more, waiting for someone to just appear out of thin air and say, hey, you, I want to put you on TV, or I want to put you in Forbes, or I want to put you in insert whatever goal media appearance of yours. Nobody's going to do that. Well, I shouldn't say nobody's going to do that, because that actually has happened to me before. And it was weird. And I ended up in USA Today, and that was really fun. But let me tell you, that was one time. Okay. I had to go out and pitch myself for everything that is in my press kit. No one just came to me, for the most part, out of thin air and said, hey, we want to put you on TV. That's great when it happens, but do the work. Don't be afraid. You have what it takes. These people are looking for subject matter experts to come and talk on their morning shows, on their podcast, on their radio shows. They're just looking for people all the time. And don't be intimidated if you don't have a publicist, because guess what? I don't have a publicist. I'm my own publicist. There was a time when I had a publicist. It was a very short-lived time period of probably about 3 months. And I have done far more for myself than that publicist did for me in those 3 months. He probably got me on like a few blog interviews and like I think a gospel radio show interview here or there. I have landed myself in some major things because nobody's going to push you harder than you. You believe in yourself more than anybody else, or at least you should. If not, there's something else you got to work on. So get out there and push yourself. I said all of that. I know that was a lot, but I just felt like I needed to stay on that. For somebody out there, that was a big win for me in Q1 was media. So now that I got the media out of the way, and that was a big win, my thing for Q2 is, all right, let's get these clients, these big clients that I know I'm capable of getting. And to that end, another thing that went well for me in Q1 that I did was a professional development trip, courtesy of my amazing husband, Rodney. Shout out to Rodney. He's also our executive producer. So he bought me for Christmas tickets to the Black Women Sell Live event by Ashley Kirkwood. Okay, we love Ashley Kirkwood over here, okay? If you haven't checked out her Speak Your Way to Cash podcast or her book, she has a book called Speak Your Way to Cash, and you have any kind of goals as a speaker, I don't know what you're doing with your life if you are not listening to everything Ashley Kirkwood has to offer. I did a review earlier in this season about books to read or read to lead. So go back and look at that episode. And in that episode, one of the books that I highly recommended for people to read was Speak Your Way to Cash by Ashley Kirkwood. Okay, so I'm at this conference, you guys. I went on March 16th through the 19th. So it was a 2-day event, but I just got there a day early and then I left out the next morning. It was fabulous. Let me tell you, I met so many amazing people. I learned so much. Y'all see this? Y'all see my little custom notebook? And I'm geeky like that. I literally ordered this notebook because I knew I was going to this conference and I didn't want to just take notes on any old legal pad. I wanted to take notes in something that would motivate me to pick up this notebook and read it. And so whenever I go to events from now on, I'm going to take my own custom notebook for that reason. So y'all, I took 20 pages of notes on the first day of the conference. The first day. And this is what I'm telling you, because how many of you guys do this? You go to amazing events like this and you take pages and pages of notes, and you're like, oh my God, it was so awesome. I met so many people. I got so many new friends now. I took so many pictures. And you come home and you're so excited. And then you put that notebook down. And after you make your social media post about it, it kind of just sits there and collects dust, and you don't do anything that you learned at that conference, event, networking thing, I don't know, amazing church conference. The things you go to, and you hear life-changing information. But information without action is useless. You can hear all the information in the world, but if you don't get out there and do the thing, that information is not doing you any good just sitting in your notebook. So that is for somebody. So ask yourself, what will I do with this information? I skipped over a step, which is, what did you learn in quarter one? And so I talked about reading books. Maybe you went to a conference like I did. Maybe you had a great session with a mentor. Maybe you had a good session in a mastermind session or something like that. Whatever you learned in quarter one, find out, what will you do with this information? And then I would even add part B to that, which is, who is going to hold you accountable for doing it? So what will you do, and who's going to make sure that you do it? Okay? And that is big, because somebody in your life has to be able to check you. Somebody in your life has to be able to say, look, you said you were going to do XYZ, but where you at? I haven't seen you do anything with that. Or how's that coming? Just them asking you periodically, like, hey, how's it going with such and such, is enough to, if you haven't done anything, it's enough for you to be like, I need to get on that. Thank you for asking. So make sure you have people in your circle that are going to hold you accountable for doing something with the information that you get. I came back, and this is a good thing to do. When you come back, especially when you go to an event like I did, and you guys, the information we were learning, it felt a lot like opening a fire hydrant while standing in front of it. Like, just like, it was so much information. It has been like 2 or 3 weeks since I got back from that conference, and I am still processing things I learned, and will be for quite a while, because there's so many pages to go through. If I just go through the notes I took at this 2-day event, and if I just go through her book, I have enough information in her book to implement and walk out to take my company, Victorious Living Solutions, to a 5- and 6-figure company. Easy. Within 2 years tops. If, caveat being if, I put action to the information I've learned from these 2 things. The information was that good. And you've been sitting on some information also. You have some information that you've learned that you could be making a lot more money. You could be seeing a lot more success. You could be a lot further ahead in your life if you kick things up a notch. I know you guys are hearing all kinds of noises in my background, and guess what it is? What is it always on this podcast? Our 2 little lovelies that are not napping when they're supposed to be napping. So we'll just ignore that tapping. They're knocking on something. I don't know. They're in their protesting, child, but they'll be fine. So I'm going to just show you, or just read you, a couple of my favorite key points from this event that I attended. I love this quote. This was doing a panel discussion. There was a panel discussion, and one of the things that was said was, be solutions minded. No problem is bigger than you. Be solutions minded, because no problem is bigger than you. And that is really key. Of course, when they said be solutions minded, my ears perked up because victorious living solutions. But when you're thinking about something and you're really getting frustrated because a task just seems like, I don't know how I'm going to get this done. Have you ever been in a situation where you know exactly where you want to be? When you're not sure where you want to be, that's one thing, but it's even more frustrating when you know and it feels so close, you can almost touch it, but then it feels yet so far away and you're just like, okay, I know where I want to be, but how do I get from here to there? And they said in this panel discussion, actions speak louder than words. You don't need anyone's validation or approval. Just do it. Okay, I'm going to say that again. You don't need child, this could be a whole episode. You don't need anybody's validation or approval. Just do it. Just do it. And that, I'm a person who's really big on thinking like that. Because if you wait for someone's validation or approval, you will be waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And you won't get anything done. You will watch people with half the talent you have pass you up, run circles around you. Why? Yeah, they have less talent than you. They may have less experience than you, but they know something that you need to keep in mind. Done is better than perfect. They're not waiting for everything to be perfect. They are getting out there and they are moving and they are learning by doing. You learn by doing. Okay? So as you get out there and you get your feet wet, you may not do phenomenal your first time out, but you'll do okay. And you'll take what you learned from that and you'll try it again somewhere else and you'll do good. And you're like, oh, and you'll take what you learned from that experience and you'll go somewhere else and you'll do great. And you'll take what you learned from that experience and you'll go somewhere else and you'll do excellent. You feel me? So actions speak louder than words. You do not need anyone's validation or approval, especially if you're a child in the kingdom of God, okay? You are created in the image of God. And once you've got God's approval, as long as you're doing what God told you to do, screw everybody else. Whose approval do you need after you have gotten approval from the King of Kings and Lord of Lords? Food for thought. Some more things that we learned. So some things that you can try in your quarter two. Let me skip ahead. I love that. If I don't bet on myself, who will? I have so many. There were so many like cool one-liners that I jotted down. So this is what I did when I came back. And after you have a life-changing experience or you go to some phenomenal event, after the conference high wears down, go to a library or a coffee shop or somewhere. Even I started this list on the plane on the way back, which was some takeaways or action steps. When I get home, what am I going to do with this information? So one thing I put was join a gym. I started, you guys, today. And so that was a big one. And the reason that is something I've been meaning to do for a while, but I don't know if I mentioned it earlier in the season. I had a foot injury last summer. It was basically severe plantar fasciitis in my left foot. So I've been having like bad ankle and foot pain in my left foot off and on for months and months and months. It finally got to the point where it went away toward the end of the year, like the top of the new year. Like, oh, okay, I could resume working out and just kind of take it easy. It finally doesn't hurt. I'm not in pain anymore. But I had gotten busy doing so many other things that I just had not gotten into the gym yet. But I looked at one of the first things that Ashley had us do was to imagine where you want to be this time next year. And she had us to write a letter to ourselves. writing a letter to ourselves, in the future. And it was really impactful for me. And I was thinking about what I want to look like physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially, and the level of success that God has for me and that I know He has for you as well. You can't experience it fully if you're not in optimal health. And the reason for that is health is one of those things that you take for granted until you don't have it anymore. And I won't say too much on that because, baby, I plan on doing another podcast episode on that too. But I didn't want to just take for granted, I feel great. I was on a trajectory like around 2020, 2021, where I had lost a lot of weight. I lost like 66 pounds or something like that. And slowly, as the world opened back up and as I got busier and got into the swing of all these other things, I was in ministry school for like 9 or 10 months. I was doing all of these things. The weight started to creep back on and creep back on and creep back on. And then, child, when I injured my foot and just couldn't work out at all, it was like I fell off the wagon and then the wagon rolled over me. So I definitely, one of my biggest action steps was I'm going to get in the gym. For one, I need to be in good physical shape and not take for granted the fact that I feel fine now. I need to not be overweight so I can take good care of my temple. And also because this is a lot. The vision that God has given me for this company is a lot. And I need to be in optimal health in order to carry it out. And do all of the things that I have to do, homeschooling, raising my kids, being a wife, all of the things that God has given me along with this company. So that was my first action step, even though it had nothing to do with the conference. After that, I said, how do I leverage my receipts? Receipts is basically my credentials. I have a lot of credentials, certifications, experience. How do I leverage those things to drive revenue for my company? This was, oh my gosh, this statistic that they said at this conference, you women that are listening out there, listen to this. There was a publicist, a very successful publicist that spoke, and she said only 28% of women experts are featured in the news. Did you hear me? 28%. So if it's 28% of women, of those 28% of women, how many of those women do you think are Black? Think about it. It's not a big percentage, okay? And that's really key because as you're building brand authority, you need those appearances. Like when people see as seen in Forbes, as seen in, Today's Show, TEDx speaker, different things, that makes them go, oh, they know their stuff, because people who are featured in those things, they're not just having anybody on there, right? So that's why it's important to get those things. Talking about getting a sales system process, y'all, it was so much stuff. Doing live demonstrations of your expertise. So these are just a few of my action steps that I jotted down when I got on the plane. And I jotted down even more when I got home. I went to a library and I went, oh my God, I gotta do something with this. This information was too good for me to not do anything with. You know what else I did? I became friends with some amazing sisters from this conference, and we've been texting each other back and forth, holding each other accountable for what we learned. That's a great thing to do because you've got something in common. It wasn't just your experience at this event. They also had the same experience as you. And so, they're going to be able to hold you accountable on a different level, having experienced the same thing as people who know and love you, but they weren't there. So it's kind of like they can tell you some things, but these people were there. Oh, do you remember when Ashley told us such and such and such and such? Did you do that part yet? And then if they did. And they're all like, yeah, we did it. You're going to feel kind of like, oh, dang, I didn't do that yet. I need to, get my act together. So that is a great thing to do when you're at events, especially. I mean, you have a lot to learn and you're there to get your money's worth, but please do not forego good old fashioned networking, because you never know who you're going to meet and what they can do to help you get to where you're trying to get to and what you can do to help them. So that's all great stuff. Those are some great tips for how you guys can kick things up a notch in Q2. Okay. If you didn't get every I dotted and every T crossed in Q1, so what? Write down what you did really well. Write down some things you can work on. Get you some action steps. You know what you need to do right now. Go to www.victoriousliving.solutions.com, subscribe to our email list, and get a free download of my goal setting worksheet. Very effective. This is the perfect time of year to do that. Take that goal setting worksheet and fill it out, and let's have a rocking Q2. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Bye, everybody.